Hello and welcome to W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights. I'm your host, W.R. Frady, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of ghost stories, strange tales, weird happenings, and spooky fun for the Halloween season. Or any season when the spirit moves you to feel right. Tonight's episode, as is implied by the fire and the lanterns and such, I like to call Fireside Tales. And with Fireside Tales, if you're used to going camping or telling ghost stories by the Halloween bonfire or even around a campfire at night, then you know Fireside Tales is a little bit of a wild card. You could have completely unrelated ghost stories or weird tales all rolled into one. So, without further ado, let's talk about our first tale. Our first tale takes us to a lonely town where, like all small towns, you may have that one hermit. Now this hermit everybody may love or know real well, or in some cases he may be a hermit that nobody has any favor with, and sometimes for misunderstandings, other times with very good reason. This story is much the latter, as you will see as we unfold the tale of Crabby Addy. The tale of Crabby Addy. Addy was the town hermit, and he was a miser of a hermit. He was such a miser of a hermit that he would haggle over a penny if he thought he could get something for free. He was always rude, hateful, detestable, just absolutely shunned the world around him. And even so, it was only said that the only thing that Addy loved was his money. As I said, everyone disliked Addy. Some people call him a Scrooge, a hateful old geezer, a miser. The children in town, however, had their own name for him. Because he was always angry and he was always rude, they called him Crabby Addy. So when they would see his truck rolling into town, "Here comes Crabby Addy! Here comes Crabby Addy!" And they would say and sing and dance and say his name, but then run when he got out of the vehicle. Well, it just so happened that one day Crabby Addy was in town and he was having an utter disagreement with the clerk at the old hardware store. And he stormed out after not getting his way. He stormed out. And one of the children was there, and when "Here's Crabby Addy, Crabby Addy," he threw open the door. And "Get out of the way, kid." And at the same time, the kid had a pup that was right there with him, and it was the child's brand new pup. I mean, he just had him a couple of weeks, maybe got him for a birthday. But either way, the pup and the child, everywhere they went, they were together. But in his just bitter, unlikable, just detestable, foul mood, he reared back and kicked the pup to get him out of the way, and the pup yelled. Unbeknownst to the rest of them, the dogs in the area also took note of this. They turned and watched, and they saw the pup whimpering, and the pup was all right, even if a bit winded. But the other dogs, especially the stray dogs and stuff, took notice. So as Crabby Addy, as the kids like to call him, got into his truck and started out toward the edge of town, unbeknownst to him, a trove of dogs, a pack, formed. And they were slowly going the same direction he was, out it toward where he lived off in the woods. Excuse me. Anyway, well, the child took her pup home and got it tended to. But the town noticed that the dogs began working their way out of town. That night, as the harvest moon hung in the air like a cold dead eye, casting a silvery glow on the land, Addy went into his cabin, off in the woods, far away from civilization, to where he had all the privacy he wanted. And he went out back and shoveled up a couple of his mason jars and began sticking the money that he had left over from his trip to town down in the mason jars and cranking them back up, putting the lids back on them, putting them back in the ground. And he heard a growl from behind him. Then another, and he looked. "Now get out of here, you mutt!" He's sitting there talking. The dog had come in and was growling at him. Next one come in, another one, and then another. "Yeah, get!" And he swung a shovel at him, which kind of moved him back. But then they advanced on him again. Without hesitation, more and more dogs gathered around that old shack, that old shed behind his cabin. As the night drew on, the people in town heard all kinds of howls and yips and barking coming from outside of town over toward where Addy's place would be. And they could swear, amidst the howling and the baying and the barking of dogs, they could hear an old man screaming for help. But who was going to help the old miser? Who was going to help the old, detestable hermit that spent the majority of his time in town making everyone's life miserable just so he could be happy with an extra buck? For a few days, nobody saw their dogs. And then when they did come back, including all the strays, everything was fine. And all life went back to normal, but no one ever saw or heard from Crabby Addy ever again. But it can be said that on certain nights in the year, when the harvest moon hangs up in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the land, you can hear the howls and the baying of dogs out in the woods, and you can hear the scream of Addy as the dogs ripped him to shreds. Our next tale takes us far away from the lonely town where a pack of vengeful dogs pretty eliminated a problem in their town their way, to a hotel on a lonely country road just beyond the reach of civilization. Excuse me. This little town I call Voice. You see, John had been traveling for the largest part of the day on his way to visit his family up in the northern part of the state. But setback after setback had happened, and eventually his drive caught up with him, and it was getting late in the evening. So he decided, rather than try to push it and possibly fall asleep behind the wheel, he would stop off at at a hotel and then get himself a good night's rest and continue on his journey the next day. Well, as he went along, he waited, and he kept seeing some of the hotels along the way, and many of them would take him too far off of the beaten path for him to really want to veer off and go to any of them. But then he came upon the old Woodruff's Hotel. And the old Woodruff's Hotel was just a roadside hotel, multi-floor. Looked like it come out of the mid-1800s. And it didn't look shabby or run down or look like anything he would have to worry about locking his door too tightly at night. And all the rooms seemed to be indoors. So he got out, got his bags and stuff he needed, and went up, talked to the clerk, purchased a room. But the clerk told him, says, we're all booked up. We do have one room left. We always tend to have this one room left, as people don't usually stay in that room. There's a rumor that it's haunted. But, you're welcome to it if you want it. But I have to put it out there that the room is known to be haunted. Well, John was too tired to worry about being haunted. He was like, honestly, I've got a long drive. I really don't want to have to try and find another hotel. If the room's available, I'll take it. So it was all set. He went in, he got his stuff, took it into his room, opened up, and the room was a beautiful room. It had an old canopy bed. It had an old writing desk with an ink bottle, with an ink vial and pen. It had stationery. I mean, it even looked like it come from the 1800s. And John had a good appreciation of that, because there was a sense of class to the room that, even though it was a lower hotel, it felt like he was in something luxurious, a forgotten treasure that had been just left behind by time. So John got everything ready and started getting ready for bed, but he also remembered what the clerk said in the back of his mind about the place being haunted. So John decided that after he had gotten dressed down for the night, he opened the door and looked down the hall both directions, closed it, locked the bolt, locked the chain, and turned the door and locked the door itself. He went over to the closets, looked around, looked inside, checked, even tapped on the wall, making sure there was no fake panels and everything. Closed the closet tight. He went over, checked the windows, Opened it up, the air come rushing in, and he shut it back down, locked it real good, checked under the beds, and just went about doing the whole thing. And after he methodically checked the entire room, he went over, lowered the dimmer on the lights, got ready to crawl into bed, and then finished dimming the lights. He left a small candle burning on his desk, on the writing desk beside the bed, so that once he crawled into bed, he could reach over and blow it out. And as he reached over and settled into bed and blew the candle out, darkness filled the room, and the ethereal glow from the outside cast a pale twilight hue into the room. And as John stretched and got ready and nestled into bed, from the ink bottle, somewhere on the writing desk, he heard a small voice going, "At least now we're shut in for the night." At that moment, John realized it was more than just a room. I guess you could say we've moved from one bed to another. For this tale, this third tale, we go to a lonely apartment building where Randall is trying to get a good night's sleep, only to be awakened by something in the middle of the night. I call this the thing by the window. Randall had just settled in for bed. Had pulled his covers up tightly around him, left his ceiling fan on so that it would stir the air and keep the air from getting stuffy and hot inside the apartment. And as he got comfortable, he fell fast asleep. Well, about middle of the night, he's not sure exactly what time it was until when he woke up. He woke up to that strange sensation of somebody or something watching him. And so he opened his eyes and took in the scene of the room as his eyes adjusted from the sleep and the slumber-induced blindness to making out the shapes of the room. The street light and the moon and the night cast an ethereal glow about the room, highlighting everything in hues of twilight, which had no definite color of its own, but a conglomeration of equal parts shadow and shade, with highlights outlining what could be seen. And as he looked around, he could make out the chair over by the doorway and the coats and stuff hanging on it. And he kept on looking around until his eyes fell on something by the window. And he focused, and he knew that there wasn't anything there that he should know about. But whatever was there was of a shape he wasn't familiar with, for it had no affiliation with anything earthly or animal-like. but stood there looking at him, undescribably just puffy and almost humanoid, if you could call him almost humanoid, having a blobby looking appearance and some kind of tentacle like appendages, which was unlike anything he could describe. But it was that was what he had seen looking at him, and it was looking right at him, and he was looking right back at it, and they were aware of one another and how long they sit there. The thing slithered and plopped at some point, and he swore that if he could make out that what its visage was, it might have been trying to communicate with him. However, he wasn't sure. Time seemed to go forever as the two were in a standoff. And just as he was about to draw back and start making his way to the other side of his room, further away from this thing, it reached out one of those unholy, unnatural, unearthly appendages to reach for him. And just as it was about to reach to him, the first light of dawn peered over the horizon, and the thing in a blurping, slurping, plopping, slithering shamble of curses unrelated to any language known to man, it faded from the night and back to where it came, from whence it came. Randall had no idea what it was that had come that night. All he knew is it was there, and it was there for him. And with that, Randall never fully slept comfortably again. I hope you enjoyed tonight's stories. Whether you're from the small town or that lonely road with the hotel, or even in a lonely city apartment where strange things might appear in a window, I hope that you've gotten some enjoyment, some entertainment, and perhaps a couple of new stories to tell around your campfire or your Halloween party. Anyway, I hope to see you come back again next week. Whether it's here, whether we're out on the road, I may have some guests coming in. Either way, I look forward to doing more ghost stories with you. And I hope you sleep well. And that don't make any dogs angry this week. Don't stop off by any strange hotels. And definitely make sure your blinds are closed before going to bed. For there are all manner of things that go bump in the night. And your story might become the next fireside tale that someone tells. Alright, you have a wonderful evening. I will see you next time. This is W.R. Frady. Thank you for watching.